Hi everybody, this is MaDonna from Mad Bees Quilt and Sew, and welcome. It is Monday afternoon and I am here with my baby Bargello. I have my whole top sewn now. It looks like I still need a good pressing on it, but that's about it. So today I want to talk a little bit about what do I do next. So the next couple things I need to do are figure out what kind of a batting I'd like to have on this and what kind of a backing. So the batting that I'm going to use is going to be a poly cotton blend. And the reason I'm choosing that is because I like the loftiness of it, which means how poofy it's going to stay. So once it gets washed, it's going to look really scrunchy. This is a quilt that's going to be a utilitarian quilt. It's not going to be a wall hanging because then I would pick a different batting. But I want somebody to lay on the couch with this, curl up with it, roll it in a ball and use it as a pillow today. Tomorrow it's a blankie, whatever they want to do. So it's really going to be used, and the poly cotton is going to hold its shape the best and give it the softest feeling. If you're looking for something for just a cotton throw, then I would use a cotton blend inside of it, or a pure cotton I should say. It's a much thinner, so it doesn't show off your quilting as much. So when this is done, I have a couple of options, and one of them is the backing, okay? So I'm going to measure this right now for you, and you can see that I measure out at 41.5 inches. Now, I am not sure that that's exactly how big yours is going to be, but that's where mine wound up as. So at 41.5 inches, the width of a traditional piece of fabric is not going to be wide enough to be able to do it in one piece. So the pattern will tell you that you're going to need a double the amount of fabric so that way you can get a backing for it. But if you remember, we had quite a few strips left from this. So we can use those to make our back wider. So I'm going to show you some backs first that I chose to go along with this, and then I'm going to show you the back of another quilt to show you how I incorporated that look into this. So first I'm going to go ahead and show you this bolt of fabric. So this is Quilting Treasures fabric. It has a selvage end on it. So the width of the fabric after the selvage comes off is at about, what do we got here? So I'm going in to make sure all the selvage is off, which is about 3/4 of an inch. And then I'm here and I'm at 21.25. So I'm only at 42.5 inches wide. And I need to have this be at least 52 inches wide so that way I have enough for the quilter to be able to quilt it. So I need to come up with about 10 more inches worth of a center strip on it. So, or I could do 2 widths of this and sew it together. When you sew together 2 widths, you want to make sure that you're getting rid of all of this selvage on the inside seam. Okay, what does that mean? Because this is something that I see happen quite often. There's the selvage, and we can see it. It is actually on both edges here. Okay, we have selvage on both. It is the same thickness on both. Even though you only see the white on this edge, when you get really close to it, you can see these little pin pokes, and those pin pokes are what they're using to hold on to the machine as they're printing this. So those little pin pokes, I can't even say it, pin pokes, you don't really want into your quilt. They're never gonna wash away. So we're gonna have this piece of fabric like this. We're going to attach it to itself, okay? So we've got this here. We're going to put right sides together, and we're just going to use this other fabric here just so you can see what I'm talking about. I would never put these two together, but I meant to put them together in the same quilt. Okay, so here's my selvage with writing on it here. Okay, most people would take both selvages that have writing on them and put them together. And I hate to tell you, that's wrong. Okay, you should have one inside piece and one outside piece. So I should be using the selvage that doesn't have writing against the selvage that does have writing. That way they're both going in the same direction that they were woven. So it just, when it gets washed, there's not a nap, but there is. It's going to look much nicer when you wash it. You're going to hide that center seam better. The other thing that I do is I prefer to sew this center with the selvage on, and I sew in about 1.5 inches. So I'm sewing way deep down into here, okay? Then I go back in and cut off all my selvage and press it. Well, why do I do that? Because one, it is so much easier to know that this is a really nice straight line. I can use that. I don't have to worry about how I cut it. I can match up my two pieces of fabric really nicely there, and they're going to sew together beautifully. They're nice and strong, nice and tight. Then once I've cut them, I'm going to sew them, I'm going to trim them, then I'm going to press it. I prefer to press mine open. I like the look of it when it's quilted. It lays a lot flatter for us. So as the quilter is going across it, you're not going to hit a heavy seam, which really makes it lay so much nicer. So the next thing I have to think about is my choice of fabric. Oh, let me show you one more thing too. Okay, the next product I have on my table though is 108 wide fabric. And if you don't know much about that, it is something that most quilt stores carry, not all, but most. So this fabric here is actually double folded on the roll. So that means that it's 44, 44, 44, 44. And it winds up to be between 106 and 112 inches wide. It's rare that we see anything over 112 inches, but 108 is common. So just look at the end and make sure you're buying what you need. So this would easily be able to do our quilt for us, and we'd be able to do this in one piece, and we'd have a lot of fabric left over. My only suggestion for that is to pre-wash this. So most of our fabrics that we use in our quilting are done on a very nice tight weave. A lot of quilt backs are done with and I hate to use the word lesser grade, but a more open weave, and they have a tendency to shrink more. So how much more? Well, the rule of thumb is that fabric shrinks between 3 and 5%. So I would say that these are going to hit much closer to the 5% than the 3%. If you're okay with your quilt being quite scrunchy, don't pre-wash. If you're okay with it just having a little bit of scrunchy, pre-wash this, but don't pre-wash your front. So it just is really going to help it to stay nicer for you. The wide backs that we've had, we've actually been trying to do this a little bit more, is pre-washing them. They actually quilt a lot nicer if the back is pre-washed. It really, it's not having to perforate it. Some of the wide backs that we've gotten in have more of a finish on them, and that helps to remove that and soften it. They wash up beautifully. I recommend that you press them lightly after you've washed them, or let them hang to dry. They'll dry really nice for you. Throw them in the dryer for the first 10-15 minutes, get most of the moisture out, and then just hang them up. They quilt out perfectly, so no big deal. So that's what I would be looking at for that. We did have quite a few strips left over, so I would use those for the center section of this. And I'm going to show you a quilt that I just completed, and this is a 3-yard quilt. And this is a class that we'll be holding in the store in just 2 weeks, I think it is. It's on a Sunday afternoon, and it's a great one for a beginner to learn some new techniques. So this is the 3-yard quilt here. And on the back, I needed to make it wider. So I just took some of the leftover pieces. And I put them down the center of it. And it really just adds something to the back. And it also just makes it the width that I need then, so that the long armor can do it. Can they be pieced together in any direction? Yes. Now you do need to be careful so that when you hand this to the long armor, you need to let them know how you want this positioned. I came in and I knew that this was going to be positioned off center. I like it when it's off center. What happens when it's totally center, it always wants to fold exactly right on that crease where that's at. So it's harder to get your quilt to just lay nicely. You're always going to feel like you've got a little bit of a line there. So it really, it looks cute though. It just adds such flair to the back of it, and it adds some interest to it. So that's what I am showing for today. Anything else, Deanna?
So if you have pieces like that, would your instinct, and you are pre-washing your back, would your instinct be to pre-wash those pieces as well that you're
No, because they're not going to shrink as much as your back is. Your back is really going to be the thing that shrinks the most. Okay. When I'm only doing something, this is like a 3-yard quilt, okay, or like this one. I'm only looking for a 6-inch piece down the center. I'm not looking for a full back. I don't feel we're going to get the shrinkage as much. Okay.
And what about fabric choices? What are you looking for when you're looking for choices for your back?
choices for my back is complementary.
Okay.
Okay, not matchy-matchy, but complementary.
Okay.
For me, some people want the fabric line that's on the front to have the fabric line on the back. When I did my 3-yard quilt today, I picked from many different fabric lines so that way, one, I had lots and lots of choices, and two, I wasn't stuck with, if this line was gone, I needed to have that. I also think about like binding as kind of the picture frame. So I pick out a piece that I think is going to end it well for me. I do not like the wrap over binding. There are some people who love that wrap over. That's your decision. What else can I tell you about binding? But yeah, I like the back. If the quilt flips over, what's it going to look like with it? You know, so that's what I kind of think about. So like this lime green, flip it over onto the front of that. How cute is that? Okay, really, really cute.
Cool.
So I am done with this series. I think that we've learned a ton. If anybody has any questions, please shoot us some questions because we'd love to hear from you. Next week, we are going to start working on a small bag. And I say that term that we're working on a bag, please do not get scared, okay? It's a very quick, simple. We're using a technique that's out there that's been used many times. The strap on it is a little bit different, but we're doing this next one so that way we have a charity event coming up on August the 7th, I think is the date.
It's around there, yeah.
Yep, we're doing a charity event and it's the bag that we're going to be using for that. That way many of you will be able to watch this video beforehand and you'll know exactly what we're going to do for that class. So that's what I know today. Anything else I need to talk about?
So if you guys do want to sign up for the 3-yard quilt class, it's called 3-yard quilts. It's Big Blooms, and that'll be on August 25th, I believe is the Sunday. Yep. That's online and over the phone, in store. And the charity event she's talking about, we'll be posting that soon.
Yes, and that's called My Boyfriend's Bag.
Yeah.
And that's, we're going to make the bag. We'll start it next week. We actually might even be able to get it done. Not sure.
Cool.
But we'll do My Boyfriend's Bag is the charity event that we're having in August. And we actually already got a connection for somebody who was interested in some of them. So I'm very excited about that. There was a lady here from hospice yesterday. So men need things just like women do. So we're excited to be able to do that. So that's what I know for today. I am so glad that you joined me for this series. And yes, we have a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Sandy wants to know, how are you going to machine quilt yours?
Well, actually, Sandy, today, another customer, Jan, actually sent me a new website, and I hadn't seen it before, and they had the cutest meandering bee, and I think I'm going to do some meandering bees on here. So I haven't picked out which back I'm going to use yet. I'm leaning towards this one, because I think it would be funny to have the bees then on these flowers. It would look really cute. So I think I'm going to do meandering bees. If I get it done this week, I will show it next week so you can see what I've done. So
She says nice.
nice. Oh yeah, like one of these pinky oranges would be fun as the binding. We'll see what we have left. You know what's out there. Or even these blue dots. The blue dots would be really cute because look at how it pulls that blue that's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have lots of choices. Lots of choices. So thank you for asking the question. Good question. Anybody else? You guys, thank you so very much for joining me. I love it when I hear you come into the store and you say, I've been watching you. That really does make me happy. And I'm glad that this is the place you want to be. Have a great afternoon.